This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our #1 priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Hello, I'm Arturo Uribe, and welcome to the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement 2020 Election Candidates Forum. I'm here today with the candidates for District 37, Representative District 37, and with our commentators. We're live streaming this on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you feel like you want to ask a question, you're more than welcome to go on Facebook to ask the question. We're not going to ask all the questions that are coming on Facebook, but we will be taking questions off of Facebook. Due to the pandemic, we've had to change things up in how we engage with our candidates. And again, it's been a difficult time for not just the candidates, but for us as the citizens, the voters, here in the community to engage. It's been a challenge for all of us, and doing this live with our candidates and our commentators has allowed us to think out of the box and be more creative in how we do this. And so I really appreciate my commentators and the candidates for showing up. The pandemic has made us socially distant. Candidates can't go door to door. Our communities can't hold their community forums. And so this is one way that we can do that, by streaming it live with the folks out there so that they can ask questions of our candidates. We have partitions between the candidates. You may not be able to see them. We've been socially distanced. We're wearing masks, some of us. And the place has been sanitized. So I'm very happy about what the studio is doing to stay in, positive about how we engage here in these closed spaces. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our commentators. Shirley?
Good evening to the listening audience, to Arturo Uribe, Kelly, my co-commentator here, to Representative Joanne Ferrary and Commissioner Isabella Solis for House District 37. I'm E. Shirley Baca. I am a legislative analyst with the state Senate majority, who are the Democrats. I am a former state representative and PRC commissioner, and I just get as involved as I can in elections, and I'm really of the belief that this will be one of the most prolific and profound elections for us this year. And I'm here because I want the voters to go out and vote. Listen to what your candidates have to say and vote, vote, vote.
Kelly.
Kelly O'Connell here, Kelly Sean O'Connell. And I'm a local attorney, and also I'm a writer at Canada Free Press, and I was, before that, an academic writer at St. Thomas in Miami, Florida. I had a radio show in town, 1450 AM, Bravo Mike, AM Las Cruces for almost 7 years. And I was the house piano player at Encanto for about a year and about 3 years at Rendezvous Restaurant. And we were going to call this the shootout at the COVID Corral. So we're very grateful for the candidates because it is taking a risk to come out in a live forum and to put yourself on the podium for questions, but we really appreciate it, and Arturo, we appreciate you putting this thing together.
We'll go ahead and allow our candidates to introduce themselves. Representative.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I'm Representative Joanne Ferrary for House District 37, and when we're in committee, we always introduce ourselves, and then I always mention that I'm from Las Cruces and the east side of Las Cruces mostly, and where we always have such a beautiful view of the Oregon Mountains.
Yes. All right. Commissioner.
Thank you for having us. I'm going to remove my mask since I will be speaking, and it makes it a lot easier so you can hear me more clear. If you don't mind, I did wear this coming in, so just to make sure that the audience knows that I did wear my mask. I'm Isabella Solis, and I was a former FEMA employee, worked with Hurricane Katrina, worked with the flooding in Hatch when we had those floods back in 2006. I am honored to be here today. Arturo, thank you for having us, for inviting us. Shirley, it's great to see you. And Kelly, it's been a long time since you were on the radio, and I was on the radio with you when I was running for county commissioner.
You haven't changed a bit.
Thank you. And I'm excited about what is going to happen, not just in this race, but in all the races. I think that people are encouraged. I think that they're looking for a change. So I'm excited about what we're going to do. So thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you. So Shirley and Kelly, doing your research and looking at the demographics with District 37, I got some information here on the registration breakdowns. It's about 29,000 people that live in the district, and out of them, there's like a little over 10,000 registered Democrats, and about 7,600 registered Republicans, and people who either did not state or are independent. There's about a little over 6,000 registered independents. It's an interesting district. What do you think, Shirley?
Well, I think it's interesting too because it represents the east side, as Representative Ferrary said, and the east side could mean Sonoma Ranch and maybe on into some of the little communities that are growing more and more. We had State Senator Bill Solis last week, and he also crosses over with some of her district. It's interesting too because in terms of the cultural breakdown, 45% are of Hispanic, and then the other 65 would be other, and you could say Anglos or African Americans or whatever, but it does encompass a certain amount, a substantial amount of Hispanics in the area.
And Kelly, what did you find when you did your research?
Well, I mean, it's just, I was fascinated that we tend to see the town as pretty Democratic and left-leaning, and this is a fairly fluid area, and 10,000 Democrats, almost 8,000 Republicans, but you've got this giant pot of independents, so, I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah. With that, I want to go ahead and start with the questions. Kelly, go ahead.
Sure. All right, I'm going to ask this of both of you, but a question that I think is important. What is the purpose, I'll ask Joanne first, what's the purpose of government in your opinion? And just a brief statement, I guess.
Oh, that's an interesting question. When I lived in Las Cruces during the 80s, we worked on car seat loaner programs and getting people to wear their seat belts. And when I graduated from state, then I went to work for Traffic Safety Bureau, which is part of the Highway Department. And that effect of being able to work with people and at a government agency, providing the prevention that we needed for also DWI prevention, it makes it so that government can make things better for people collectively. And it makes it so that you can work, and we had assessments of $75 per DWI that then made it so that we could put that money into programs. And so that assessment and having the laws that we passed in the early 90s for DWI prevention, we were one of the first states in the nation to qualify for a federal 410 grant. That gave us $1 million to put into programs for the DWI checkpoints, to get training, to get the equipment that the different enforcement agencies needed. So I think for so many things, healthcare, for making the collective assessments, for licensing different businesses, for making sure that our environment is safe. All of these things gives government purpose for making all of us safe.
So safety. And Isabel, the question, what is the purpose of government? It seems like, well, you made a switch from Democrat to Republican, so I'm thinking that you've thought about this a little bit.
I have really thought about what government is, because I have to go back to the core functions of county government. I always wondered why the county was so extended and filling money into places. I always felt like we should function under the core functions of county government. What does that look like? Make sure our fire is okay, the police is okay, or I should say the sheriff department is okay. Make, the emergency medical, all these places are in place before we begin to extend ourselves out. And and I guess government, in my opinion, is the responsibility, as we're talking about Santa Fe, the government, the governor, all of that, they have a responsibility to provide jobs for our community, make sure that our families are safe, and make sure that they have a place to work. And I think that that's one of the biggest responsibilities or role of a government. I think that currently today, as I look at the county, and even as the state, we are top heavy as a government. I think that we need to have a balanced government, and that's what is missing, because we want to channel everything through the government. We want the government to pay for this. We want the government to do this. There comes a time when we need to be balanced in what we are doing, to be a effective community to where people want to come to Las Cruces, to come to the state of New Mexico. I think that we need balanced government, but they do have a role and responsibility to provide for the people in our state, and those are jobs.
Can I just make something clear? It
Sure.
wasn't just safety that I was talking about.
I was just kind of summing up what I thought you were saying.
Yeah. No, it also means education. It means having health care that's for everyone. It's providing a lot of things that we can do better as a state and as a nation rather than individually.
Okay. All right, that's good.
Thirdly?
Well, in that same line of questioning, as Commissioner Solis said about one of your feelings is that you're feeling that the government has gotten too top heavy and we need to balance. How would you approach balancing the government as you serve in a government legislative function? And that's a question that I'd like for both of you to think of, because you are serving in a legislative government function, representative, and I want to know how you would like to change the top-heavy portion of the government.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see happen is that our education system would probably be one of the biggest things as government. It is so government control. I would like to be able to see more school choice and those opportunities for families. Right now, we don't have those choices, and I think that that's one of the things that I would like to be able to see how we can adjust, make some changes. And having school choice brings in business. It creates opportunities for people. So that would be one of the ways to just move away from just top-heavy government. There are a number of other things, but I think education is really key in our state right now. As a matter of fact, with everything that's going on with COVID and the kids at home right now, we are facing some deep challenges. So what is that going to look like for the future?
All right, Representative.
Thank you. Well, I disagree. We do have choice for schools. There are private schools that are allowed. We just fund public schools because we have to make sure that we educate all children first. And then we do have chartered, public chartered schools that do give some choice to people other than just the mainstream. But you know, for individuals that might need extra help, like kids who aren't accomplishing what they should in high school or in you know, certain cultural differences too. So we need to make sure that, first of all, that we've supplied public school education for everyone. And then we have the choice of people who want to go to a private school. That's their choice. But we have to first and foremost make sure that we provide for everyone in every situation, especially kids with special educations and disabilities.
All right, we got a question from the Facebook, and I will go ahead and ask that question. It's coming from Kelly Joe, and she's asking both the candidates, how do you plan to get capital outlay to bring projects and money to the community? And I'll go ahead with Representative.
Sure. Our capital outlay process, especially for southern New Mexico and Doña County, our representatives and senators, we work together with the lists that we get from the city and the county lobbyists who represent those entities, and we look at all of the different projects that need to happen, the infrastructure that needs to be built, the flood control, the parks, the recreation center like on the East Mesa. And we prioritize within our group of legislators how we're going to cover the needs of those different requests. And I think it's worked really well. There's been some discussion about how to prioritize statewide all of the different, so that some rural communities have opportunities for projects that they might not ever have the funding for. Because as legislators, senators get a certain amount that's more because they have to, it goes a third to the governor, a third to the Senate, and a third to the House. So we get a little bit less because there's more of us in the House. So with that together, we work and we make sure that we can cover the projects that really need to happen.
All right. Commissioner?
The county has a 5-year plan, the ICIP list that Joanne was talking about, the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. And it is to be able to provide the infrastructure that is needed in the community, the capital outlay. But as we submitted that plan, I know that the governor vetoed so many of the projects that we had on that plan because of the funding, because of there was such a huge amount of spending that took place. So now a lot of the things that we wanted to accomplish or the projects that we wanted to get done were vetoed. So therefore, I don't know how we're going to be able to supply some of these capital outlay projects because we don't know what the budget looks like. Right now, we're looking at a deficit, and so I don't know if we're going to be able to fund anything at this point in time. And then we've had to deal with COVID and funding for COVID and try to protect our citizens, our community. And I understand that. But right now, as the way things look, as going in as a legislator into the House of Representatives, I don't know that I'll have any money to give anybody.
So, do we know how big the deficit's going to be? A lot of people are interested.
Yeah, I think that the last thing I heard was $2 billion. And so that is really huge. So we're going to have to look at the budget before we can decide where we're going to channel and funnel money, to be able to, work on the ICIP list, which Ms. Ferrary mentioned, that is the priority list that we submit to the state, and then we do try to get funding, for those particular projects.
I'd just like to clarify, the $2 billion was FY20. So now we're not sure because oil and gas has gone up that we might be able to have some capital outlay, and the only reason those other bills or other capital outlay were vetoed was because we found out after we passed our budget and all the different capital outlay, the devastation that happened with oil and gas.
And both of you, I can see clearly that both of you understand the capital outlay, but as a citizen and folks that are advocating for projects in our community, we've had to have them done in phases. Mm-hmm. How effective, do you think that process of depending on capital outlay to complete the project, whether it's a community center or park or roads, how effective is it being done in phases?
The phase phase way of doing things, because it takes so much for getting the process through. You have to accommodate, you have to acquire the land if you're building like a spaceport, or not spaceport, the jetport down in Sunland Park, Santa Teresa area. So you have to have the design after that. You have, so all of these different phases of a project can be done incrementally through different years. And the trick is to make sure that you have at least the start of a project, so that it, if it has a shortfall in the budget, that we don't claw it back. So by getting a project started is really the important part. And then we can go in and add as years, as the project progresses.
And that is true. As every year, we have projects, we have wish lists, and we all want this, we want parks, we want, the needs in the community, correct? Because you just got through saying we want to advocate for different projects. So in the East Mesa, we have the Dragonfly Channel, which is a flood project that we are working on. And in that flood project, we're working on it in phases. It is like an $8 million project. We will never get $8 million, in one session. That's going to take several years to be able to make that accomplishment. But we are working on those projects, and I'm excited that we are working on this project. We're already, in phase one, and like she said, we have to have the studies. That all those takes time and it takes money. And it's not like it seems sometimes like we're neglecting the projects that people are advocating for, but really it takes time to get the money year after year, phase after phase. But we are making, I think, leaps and bounds in those areas right now. I think that just the county just coming together, realizing what are the priorities, what is more important in our community. So talking to my community out at the East Mesa, they said, Ms. Solis, flooding, we need something for floods. We are always flooding. So we've been addressing those issues in the last 3 years, and I'm very excited about the projects that we have going. And so, yes, it will be in phases.
Shirley.
I want to switch up the topic a little bit, because both of you have mentioned as a top priority for New Mexico education. There's a little bit of a difference in your opinion. Commissioner Solis wants to see vouchers. We know that public monies have to go to public education and all that. New Mexico is currently under the Martinez and Yazzie lawsuit. So I'd like to know how you would address the lawsuit. Where are we with that? How you would address it, and how would you improve education for children in New Mexico? And Commissioner, anti-donation doesn't really allow us to use taxpayer monies for private functions, so we have to keep things public. But what are some of your ideas for the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit and for improving education in New Mexico?
Representative?
I'll start. Okay, you want to start with?
Representative.
Sure. Oh, and I'd just like to mention that on the Dragonfly, Representative Willie Madrid and I put in funding for that project because we realize how important it is to our east side. But for the Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit, it was to protect high-risk students that were Native American and also Hispanic. So, and it also included children with disabilities. And I am chair of the Disabilities Concerns Interim Committee, and we address and look at how are the students getting the services that they need. And that's why it was so important that we support the continuation of the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. And what are some of the things that we are doing for that, to answer that? We just were in committee last week and studied about the cultural inroads that they are trying and doing in the schools. It's a little bit more difficult because of COVID, but still the subject, and for students to be able to understand their own culture is so important, and even how they learn. And we even have a public charter, a public charter school, Raices de Sabir, Xochitl, And that school teaches half a day in Spanish and half a day in English. And the kids are Spanish and English learners. So they spend half the day in each and learn about the different cultures and the different things. And we find that that's so important. But also Martina's Yazzie lawsuit, is there to protect the high-risk students and making sure that they get the support and targeted funding for the different programs that will help them through all of these different learning instruments.
Right on. All right, Commissioner?
This lawsuit was filed back in 2014, and I think that it was a good thing that somebody stepped up to the plate, to the platform, to recognize that there are students that are not being taught, that they are being left behind, that they are not provided the resources that they need. There needs to be equity and access to this problem that we've had for a long time. If we think about it, even when I was running for a county commissioner in 2016, I would hear the conversation, we are last in education, we are last in education, we're number 49, we're number 50, whatever that number would be. And so we are still talking about the same thing. But we've had some senators and we've had some representatives in Santa Fe for the last 8 or 4 years, but they still haven't improved the education system. So what is the solution for this? Yes, that lawsuit, I can understand. I support their concerns and their issues in that matter. I think that it's high time that we bring this up to the light. This is where people have been suffering. And we as representatives, as commissioners, what are we doing about it? And to me, to be able to improve the education system, we have the standardized testing that is just a test, but how do we measure it? That is just a point to begin. That is not a measurement. Right now, I truly believe that we have such an inconsistency across the state of New Mexico in all the education system. We are not consistent in what we are doing. Yes, you can give teachers a pay raise, but that doesn't mean that it's changed the way you're being taught, how the children are being taught. And I know I got the yellow flag, right? So I just want to be able to finish that I have an idea or a solution to how we can improve education. I would like to be able to put a committee together with parents, with teachers, with educators, with different people from within the community to see. I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear your thoughts on the education. What is it that is missing? What is it that we can do better? And a lot of times when you have change of administration, everything goes to pot. And every time you have new elected officials, things change. So anyway.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to just add to that. That Martinez-Yazzie lawsuit started with the Martinez Republican administration. And they got it through before our new governor came in. And we are studying, the Legislative Education Study Committee actually brings in experts from around the world to look at best practices. And we've been doing that for the past 2 years. And we hear from the parents, we hear from the teachers who deserve to have a pay raise and to be treated as the professionals that they are. And also for them not to have to always go up into administration to get their pay raises, but to be able to have different certification levels and to be able to have funding for their own education. So the new administration, the Michelle Lujan Grisham administration, is addressing with her education, Dr. Kunkel, they are addressing the different things that will make a difference that we've discovered in this study committee. And it has included, one of my first bills was to reduce testing because I went to the doors and talked to parents, even teachers, who said, this is too much for our kids, too much stress. And I got that bill passed in my first legislative session, and it was vetoed by Governor Martinez.
All right. Well, thank you. With that, we're going to go to a break. I just want to say thank you very much. We'll come right back with some more questions from folks on Facebook and from our commentators. Thank you.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
All right, thank you very much to the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement. This is our candidate forum. We're going to go ahead and, Kelly, why don't you go ahead with the next
Okay,
question.
well, first is a statement is things have changed after COVID. Everything's different, and part of it is the economics of it. We're not going to have the same budget that we used to have. But my question here right now is COVID. Did we do well? Did we overreact? And what could we change going on in the future? I'm going to ask Isabel first. But I was told today by a former judge that he calculated from his knowledge 0.0023% of COVID fatalities in this town. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I was shocked when I heard it. But you must have some strong feelings on this. Isabel.
Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Kelly. I really appreciate it. I really, honestly, to be truthful with you and the community, is I think that the governor did a really good job when this first came on board, and she did her due diligence, and I have to give her kudos, and I really appreciate what she did. But now we've reached a point where it has gone way too far. The overreach is way overbearing. And, you know, I know that the governor, her priority for the state is to be able to bring forth a bill on abortion. To me, my priority is to get our kids back to school, open our economy, get people back to working so that they can feed their families. And yes, COVID is real, but I think that we just need to just open the economy, get back to work, get our children back into school. There is a lot to talk about our children not being in school. It is very detrimental. We are losing a complete generation of children that are going to be uneducated, and it is time that we open the schools. I know that people are fearful. I totally understand that, but you know what? We cannot lead by fear. If we're going to be leaders, we cannot lead by fear. We need to open up responsibly to be able to get our economy going, and that's my priority.
That's good.
Representative.
Thank you. Yes, the governor did get a handle because she has health care experience, and as a former congresswoman, and also as being Secretary of Long-Term and Aging. And she has to keep going the way we are because people are not adhering to wearing their masks. They are still getting into groups of more than 10. They aren't abiding by the things that have kept us safer. And we don't have that national leadership at the presidential level. And so our governor has had to do a lot on her own and fight for the protective PPE. She's had to fight for the testing. She's gotten testing for our state down to a really good art, and making it so that we can find the contact tracing also. So opening up the schools prematurely, especially like in Las Cruces where we still have a high rate. If we have one death, it's too many. We need to protect, and the kids are able to, from school, to take it to home, or even from home to school.
Can I ask you a question? You said one death is too many, but aren't we all always balancing different, dangers in a society, and we have to make compromises?
This is not something you can compromise. It's a pandemic. It's not just the flu or a cold. This is something that is airborne and very serious, and we need to treat it that way. We can't have people going into restaurants and bars without the protection of being outdoors, where you're not recirculating the air and making it so more people are getting exposed. This is why, because we haven't abided by that as well as we should have in Doña Ana County and some other areas of the state that see it growing again, because we need to make sure that people abide by those rules and stay safe so that we don't have it continuing.
Because we're limited on our time.
But that's my time. I'm not done.
You don't have an unlimited amount of time. We're all sharing at the same time.
He just gave me the yellow flag.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So we need to make sure that so that we can open our schools safely and so that we can go back and open our businesses, that we make sure that people are adhering to wearing their masks and not going into groups and rallies and things like that.
Okay. Kelly, did you want to follow up?
Well, I did have a follow-up, but I'm going to throw it over to just to balance the time to Isabel. But I've read where 94% of the deaths on this 200,000 that died were comorbid, meaning that they had more than one disease. What would your understanding of that respond to Joanne's statement?
And you got a minute, and we'll give you a minute.
Okay, so one thing that I want to say about that is, and I talked to a young lady that had a grandmother that was about to pass away. She had cancer. And so when her grandmother passed away, she got her death certificate, and the death certificate said cancer. So she said, it said COVID-19, pardon me. It said COVID-19, and she says, my grandmother did not die of COVID, she died of cancer. And so we were using COVID as a means of being able to introduce or maybe gain more money. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Excuse me. I think that's ridiculous. It's underlying conditions, which could be as simple as having diabetes or having high blood pressure. That's all the underlying condition means. It doesn't mean that you're exactly more prone to dying from COVID. It's a very deadly disease. Even healthy people are getting it and then having to suffer long-term lung and heart problems.
Yep. All right. I got a question here from Facebook. This gentleman, John Kudinak, is asking both the candidates, what will you do to support health councils in rural communities in New Mexico? And Commissioner.
Healthcare is something that we have talked about over and over and over, and it still seems like we never can find a solution to healthcare. I honestly believe that we should have healthcare as a choice. I like to be able to choose where I want to go to see the doctor, what doctor I want to go see. And I think that choices are important in our community. It can't all be government funded, government controlled. I like to be able to see more health choices in our community, and even given our opportunity to our rural area communities, let them know that they have choices, that this isn't the only way you have to go. There are other opportunities. As I was growing up, we had choices. My daddy became an entrepreneur because he knew we had choices. We could do something. So we have to pull ourselves up from the bootstraps and be able to say, this is okay that we have diversity in health insurance.
Representative?
Your question was about rural health
Rural councils and
I was on the
health councils in rural communities.
Okay. I was on a regional state rural health committee, and we devised a plan for New Mexico. We need to make sure that support health councils, which I worked with when I did the DWI planning councils. We included them in enforcement. But we need to help rural communities be able to use telehealth, where they don't have to travel for hundreds of miles to go see their doctor. They can talk to them, over the phone, after maybe they've discovered, a certain problem. And then make it so that the follow-up's not so difficult. We need to have affordable drugs so that people can get, the treatments they need. And with the rural communities, in order to attract healthcare providers to those communities, we need to give better incentives, such as, taking part of their education and giving them credit for that, or giving them sign-on bonuses, and making sure that the healthcare provider's spouse and family are going to be well cared for and excited about going to that area too. But the health councils are great because then they can address different problems, such as like we did for DWI, but also behavioral health, and also to making sure that they can coordinate with the other universities or hospitals and make sure that all of their needs are being met.
Okay. And Shirley, go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, I've heard you say at least 2 times you like to use the word choice, and you said your dad always said choice and we need to have choices. You want choices in healthcare councils, you want choices in educational institutions or locations. And then just a little while ago I heard you say something about that this governor is against or is in support of abortions. Well, in New Mexico, we follow a law based.
I didn't say that. No, that's not true.
Well, I heard something about abortion.
No, you didn't.
Okay, well then let's talk about
I think
choice.
somebody was joking and they say, are we going to talk about it? Because of what's going on in the Supreme Court.
Okay, well let's do that then, because what's going on in the Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade has in fact protected a woman's right to choose. Now, particular political parties like to say there's a right to life, but it's really a right for a woman to choose whether that life will come to fruition or not. And that being the case for both of you, and I'm glad to know that you support choices, what do you support a woman's right to choose in New Mexico, and how should we handle that?
Okay, so you're now talking about abortion. I do not agree that we should kill babies at 9 months. That's not something I agree. I know that my opponent supported a bill on not to euthanize animals. So, I mean, if we cannot, and if we are saying we do not want to kill Fluffy the kitten, but we want to kill babies at 9 months, I totally disagree with that. People in our community are not in agreement in killing babies at 9 months. I think what we need to do is we need to educate those young ladies. I think that we need to start talking about fatherhood and those men that are responsible for getting those little girls pregnant, or women, or whatever that may be. And we need to not use abortion as a birth control method. And then the third thing is, have we considered or thought about maybe adoption may be an option? Educating and adopting, maybe those are some of the things that we should look at. Adoption is important to so many people that don't have children. And for our community, our governor and Ms. Ferrary to have their priority, as we're going to talk about how we can introduce the bill to abort babies, that should not be a priority. We should be talking about opening our economy. We should be talking about the unemployment rate at 12% and all those unemployment claims that we are funneling. What are we going to do? That's what we should be focused on.
Representative?
As a representative for almost 4 years, we do have to address all kinds of different issues. I worked on over 130 bills and gotten quite a few of them passed, either as a direct sponsor or a supporter. But it just really makes me upset and sad that there's so much misinformation about the abortion bill that HB 51 that we've been trying to pass. All of the different issues surrounding this have been blown way out of context.
Can you get to the differences that you hear, the disinformation specifically?
Just everything that the commissioner said. Those are all the things that are misinformation. All we were trying to do was to make it so that we don't criminalize healthcare providers and women. Abortions have been going on for a long time. We just need to keep them safe and legal and without government interference. 78% of people, including people who live in rural areas, despite their own beliefs, believe that a woman should be able to make a decision over her own body with her doctor and to make sure that it is safe and legal. And that's all our state was doing. And as far as the bill that I worked on, it was not. It was for pet label food bill to have spay and neuter funding for our different clinics around the state.
You mind if she answers?
Yeah.
Of course.
I just
County Commissioner, 30 seconds.
Okay, I just want to say that 60 million babies have been aborted in the United States. And I think that we have literally killed a whole generation of babies. Maybe a baby that could have been the president, maybe a baby that could be sitting in your chair right there, Arturo, maybe a baby that could be sitting in your chair, Shirley. We are killing babies at 9 months. And I think that I completely disagree with her ideologies. I have that right with that opinion. And we cannot kill babies at 9 months. A lot of people say, okay, I can get it at the first trimester, but at the third trimester, this is really, we're murdering.
I think that this was a bill, as Representative Ferrari said, it was to take off an old statute of 50 years ago that would penalize women and their health care providers should they have an abortion. I do not think that it talked about first, second, third trimester. I analyzed that bill, but there was misinformation.
Can I ask, because we're running out of time, when you hear 9-month abortions and that those are legal, that's clearly one of the things. What's your response?
It's all misinformation, and a doctor has to take an oath, or she has to take an oath, and these are just things that are not true. We have a hard enough time having healthcare providers come to our state and stay in our state. So if we're going to be criminalizing them, putting them in jail, we're doing ourselves a big disservice. Okay,
I want to change it up a little bit. And I've had many requests for this, but you know, both of you guys are elected officials. I mean, you're currently our county commissioner, you're our representative. You guys both, know a lot. But I want to, is there something like representative, you're running again to be our representative, and you're running, you ran already a couple of times you're a county commissioner, but you ran for mayor and you ran for Senate, I believe.
No.
Or no, what was it? Mayor and...
This is it?
And this one right here. But is there any kind of question that you guys want to ask of each other?
I do.
Okay.
I want to read this article really quick. It is looking into nursing homes. On July 12, Democrat State Representative Joanne Ferrary, a candidate for re-election, published a self-serving column entitled, "Good Leaders Adopt Guidelines That Save Lives." She portrayed herself as a member of the House Health and Human Services Committee that is battling every day and constantly looking into innovative ways to increase public health and safety. The article praised great leaders such as the Democrat governor and her cabinet and mentioned virus mask mandate. I feel compelled to point that I repeatedly called Ferrari to remind her or to ask her to call in regards to nursing home residents. On July 23rd, 80% of the government certified nursing home beds in Las Cruces were in homes rated below or much below average. Conditions in 3 of the 6 homes were serious enough to warrant $208,000 in federal fines in 2018 and 2019. As of March 25th, the most recent annual health inspection at the 4, 1, and 2-star facilities in Las Cruces resulted in 78 citations, or an average of 19.5 per facility. The average number for all government certified nursing homes in New Mexico is 11.1.
What's the question?
So I want to say, if she is on the health and committee, what has she done about the nursing homes?
And I also want to know who signed that letter.
Let her answer.
Who is that letter from, please? I remember the article.
Yes, it was in the newspaper. It was dated August 2nd, 2020 in the Las Cruces Sun News.
So the question is, though, what is the question?
What do you plan to do about nursing homes? Since you are on the health committee, what kind of things, the House and Health, you said that you were on the House and Health Human Services Committee. So what are your plans about what you plan to do for nursing homes and all these violations that have happened in our community? I think that we need to address the most vulnerable population, which is our elderly. So what are your plans to take care of that?
Well, I don't think it's something to get so upset about, because they are having the violations, they are monitoring, and that's what's so good about making sure that like my own mother-in-law, she was in a nursing healthcare center here, and we didn't think she was getting her pills appropriately. So we reported it to the Agency on Long-Term and Aging, and they looked into it, and they said no, that they just had been ordered too many times, but she really was receiving her pills. When we got information, I am vice chair of the House Health and Human Services Committee. And when we meet in the interim as a legislative group, both Senate and House, we have committee hearings where we listen to different aspects of health in our communities. And we have heard from some of the healthcare providers for retirees and nursing homes. With that said, we do have an agency that is proactive. We need to give them more funding so that they can have more people monitoring. It's, you know, another thing where it's called big government, but it's where we need government to be able to go in and check on these things. We also got a request from people with disabilities during COVID who needed to have, you know, special advocates with them, not visitors, but people who could advocate for them going into the hospital. And so we talked to Dr. Scrace, we sent him a letter, and we made sure that, you know, that was addressed and changed. So there are things that we listen to what the problem is from our constituents, and we do something about it. It doesn't always take legislation.
And I'm going to go ahead and allow you to ask if there's a question you would like to ask of Commissioner.
Sure. Commissioner, how many direct not bills, but resolutions or ordinances have you been able to pass?
Well, I wouldn't go by the number, but I would say that I was very instrumental in spearheading a $10.2 million road initiative for our county. We are now on phase 2. I am excited about that. I was able to implement Student of the Month in education to be able to get that going in within our community and our county, because education is important to me. I was able to work on the Crisis Triage Center, something that was dormant for so long, and we are now we are working actually on hiring an executive director for the Crisis Triage Center to be able to address the mental health issues within our community. So I've done a lot, Representative.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure listening to you. You both, you know, are holding elected positions right now, and I think it's important that, you know, we do have this opportunity to ask of you these questions. So I thank you both for showing up, coming out here with us, with Shirley, with Kelly, and I wish you both good luck on your campaigns. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to just close it up, just 30 seconds each.
Sure.
Representative?
I'm running for office again for my 3rd term because I care about the people of our district and our county and our state. And I think it's important that we listen. And I've been getting lots of calls from people that have different needs, and how do we problem solve? How do we connect the dots and support what needs to be changed legislatively, or even with studies that will help progress a certain idea, such as supported decision making, because we've had guardianship problems. So I've passed the Tobacco Products Act so that young people aren't going to be vaping and getting products, and also will license people. I've worked on so many things that I feel are really making a difference, and there's a lot more to do, and I want to be there to get those through.
All right, thank you. Commissioner?
My name is Isabella Solis, and I'm running for House Representative in District 37, and I look forward to working for the people. Yes, I did change parties from Democrat to Republican, but my values and traditions did not change. They are still the same. I am still the same person. I am still going out in the community, listening to the people and their concerns and their needs, and I am driven by their needs and their concerns, because we can't not go to Santa Fe with our own personal agenda, you know, to be able to, our priority is abortion. Our priority should be the people in the community, and I'm just thankful to be able to have this opportunity to be the voice in Santa Fe for District 37, the district I represent. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and have a conversation here with our commentators. So, Kelly, Shirley, I mean, what did you take away?
I'm grateful that they came in, and I enjoyed hearing their ideas and the difference between the two opinions. I thought was illuminating.
Yeah. Shirley?
I think it's, there's always a difference in how candidates present themselves when you have an incumbent who has a proven track record or a track record of what they want to do and what they see as priorities, and then a challenger who wants to get in there and try to make some changes. As I said last time, I also think that the incumbent has the advantage because they know the process. They know how to get bills written and bills through, and they know how to work together. This is not a 5-member commission where a person only has to talk to 4 others and hopefully they'll change them. You're working with a body of 112 people, and you're in a House of 62 and a Senate of 40. And everybody comes with their ideas and their agendas and their thoughts of how they're going to make their community better. I think we have 2 women who are very well accomplished in what they do. One in the commission and knows exactly what a county does, and one in the House of Representatives, and she knows what they do there, and she's got her agenda for the future too. So I think it was a spirited conversation. I think it was also very online with their political parties thinking. And so when you have that, I think you get a lot of the same type of philosophies from what their parties do.
Kelly, when there was a moment there where you shared like kind of what Shirley was saying, like, that you felt, well, tell me what you were saying.
Yeah, but what
about when we took a break, there was a moment where you
all right,
called
so
me
I
over.
felt frustrated that I felt like the candidates were kind of taking the questions, and it was like Chinese plates. They were keeping it in the air, and I was getting frustrated. And then to go and to make a statement about your statement and then clarify your statement, I felt like that was a little bit of wasted time. And I did like the fact that Isabel took some chances and really jumped on some controversial issues, challenged Ferrary, and Ferrari did have her challenges back, but I was very frustrated in the first half, and I just wanted to pull the plug on what seemed like rope-a-dope, or felt like treading water.
Yeah. How do you feel that we could do better for that?
I think we need to limit questions more concisely, and then follow-up questions, which are the death of this kind of a forum, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, I thought that was one of the things we discussed at the very beginning when all the commentators were together, that one of the interests that would be added to a forum would be if they could contradict what the other person said or defend themselves and what the other person said.
But didn't you notice that there seemed to be a certain point when we were talking about capital outlays, and the whole time I'm thinking our budget has just been shattered.
And we have no idea where it is. And I know when Isabel said we're going to have a budget of so many million, it's like, you have no clue. Gas and oil is going up, and plus businesses have gone down. We have no clue what the budget is.
And I felt like that's why I brought up when I said, we got to remember it's a brand new day, it's a sea change. We've got to be realistic. We can't talk about capital outlays like we did for 20 minutes as if nothing has changed, because that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Well, I did think that Representative Ferrari did say capital outlay is done in phases, and this is one of the things that I spent an enormous amount of time in the Senate on. And so, like, if you're going to be in phase 2 or phase 3 of a wastewater system or of some road development, whatever it is that they're going to do, you have to look at that, and they get the next priority.
Right, but people are dying to know how things are changing, how it's going to affect them, and what does the new world look like?
Well, the questions were coming from Facebook. That capital outlay, there was a couple.
Oh, I understand, but I mean,
I think that's great.
There was so much more to talk about.
Yeah, there is, and it's so hard to do it in just an hour. I really thank you guys. I thought it was a very spirited debate. I thought there was a lot of energy. I think that's going to be a great race. I think the questions, I think we need to work on us as commentators, us as the folks asking the question, to get straight to the question so that they can answer. And I do feel like if we can hold ourselves accountable, we can hold the candidates themselves accountable to answering the question.
That's a good point.
And I'm glad that you did get, Arturo, that you got a lot of questions from the audience. And this is the audience forum. So it's easy for us talking heads to come in with our questions. We're pre-prepared. We know, both of us probably know a lot about the electoral process and what's going on in politics in our area and in New Mexico. But it's the voters forum. And so when you're asking the questions that they're bringing in, I'm saying, right on. They're listening, they're watching, they're asking.
Yep.
That's what it's about.
And this is for you. What we're doing is trying to make a space, during this pandemic where we can engage with the candidates, and social distancing can't come to the door, holding or hosting community forums. So this is our space. So I really do appreciate the questions that came in off of Facebook. I wish we could take more. There was others that we couldn't, but in an hour's time, that's all we have. But thank you. I want to thank our sponsors, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces channel. And remember, live to vote, vote to live, and you guys have a good night. Thank you.